Hello, friends. This is Tillery Timmons-Sims here again with another episode of Conservation Stories. Conservation Stories is a podcast that's brought to you by the Sandhill Area Research Association, or SARA as we call it. And we are always bringing to you different and unique ideas and individuals that are making some changes here, not just on the high plains, but all across agriculture. And I'm excited today because I have a friend here with me, Mr. Billy Tiller. He is from Amherst. So if you know Amherst, correct? Am I correct?
Actually, I'm from Beulah, Texas.
It's Beulah. Okay.
It's in the middle of nowhere, so I'm not surprised. But my wife's from Amherst, so I have to be careful that I don't, brace them. But yeah, I'm in the middle of
Okay.
nowhere out here. Very close to the Sudan community, and
Yep.
run some of my business out of Lubbock. Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew I couldn't remember if it was which one of y'all were from Amherst originally, but we've got some mutual, really good friends
That's good.
and relatives and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm glad you're on, Billy. You're always doing something, and maybe the only person I know that talks faster than me. So, so I hope people can keep up with us today. So I brought you on because you're always doing like something interesting. You've got a corporation, a cooperative of farmer data. That's
Yes.
super interesting to me, but you're also doing stuff out of state with water. So give us a little bit about your background, where kind of this entrepreneurial spirit came from.
So yeah, I'm a fifth generation farmer, raised on a farm out here west of Lubbock, Beulah, Texas, actually south of Sudan. Today it's all dry land, and we raise cotton, grain, sunflowers, wheat, those type crops, mainly cotton. Probably, if I was to say what I am, I'm a cotton farmer. But I've done that since 1982, but I've spent my whole life. I got an accounting degree from Texas Tech, and then I was a banker for a decade. I was an ag
Mhm.
lender, ran an ag lending group out of Sudan and Littlefield for a decade. 2000, but I was always focused on farming. There was never been a day since 1982 when I didn't farm. But in 2000, I kind of after we'd sold the bank and had left that venture, I got involved with a lot of consulting work around financials, and especially financials that involve private placement memorandums with young startup companies. And because of that, I got real involved in just kind of understanding what was going on, helping some of them raise money, actually even working more on the investor side, helping them decide if it was an investment that possibly could be good for them. But anyway, long story short, probably mid 2008, somewhere in there, I had the idea to sort of do my own ventures. And so I started out, and we sold this in 2012. But basically a document management company. We actually didn't build the software. We licensed, white labeled a set of software where we were working with the crop insurance industry,
Mhm.
and did that. Then while that was ongoing, I had a group that we brought together. We were trying to build a data exchange for agriculture where we could swap data between USDA, the farmer, and
Mhm.
really we were just too early. It wasn't long after the iPhone had come out and people had heard the word cloud. And so the idea of storing something offsite, people didn't think it was secure, even though, it was, but
Right.
didn't think it was a secure way to do it. So we really didn't get that off the ground. And at some point, I actually, out of that venture, formed a data cooperative. And to be honest, probably the hardest thing I ever tried to do, because I was working all across the United States. We had members literally in every ag state, and everybody wanted something different. And so
Mhm.
that really led to, we built a software group. So I have a data solutions company now. It's known as GIC LLC. It's kind of an off branch of what we tried to do with the cooperative. But I realized that my idea was too big to actually, I couldn't serve everyone. And so we
Right.
just downgraded it and began to work in specific projects where we built data solutions. And so along those lines, probably the most prevalent solution that most people know of in 2019, we bid and won a project in Nebraska that was with the Twin Platte Natural Resource District. And the idea behind the project was that They had been notified by the state through something that's called the integrated management plan
Mm-hmm.
that they were withdrawing too much water out of the river. Now, this was groundwater, so it's not surface water, but the rivers in those parts of the world in the Ogallala Aquifer are tremendously connected, and so that connected use was if you're irrigating a lot, the stream flows in the river drop, and this is the North and the South Platte River in Nebraska. Eventually becomes the Platte River in our district, in the district I work in. But they were actually notified by the state, had been notified really in 2009. Look, you got to find 7,700 acre feet you can return to the river. And they found it, and they found it by buying up wells and creating well fields where they were actually pumping water into the river, as crazy as that sounds. So it does sound crazy, but it was a solution. They made it work. But then in 2019, they were notified, oh, our calculation is a little different now, and you need to return 25,000 acre feet. Now we're talking about just turning into a lot of water in a
Right.
320,000 acre irrigated basin. And so, because of that, uh, we went and presented the idea of maybe we could help the farmers manage their water better. And it wasn't really just my idea in the beginning. I had a really good friend that lived in the district. And so he took us to the state of Nebraska, the Nebraska Department of Natural Resources. So we got to really look at how the data was curated that they were utilizing to build the modeling around
Mm-hmm.
that. And so, given that, we came to the conclusion that maybe farmers weren't using quite as much water as they thought. And then
Oh,
the other premise that I had that I thought really led the project was if farmers knew how much water they were irrigating, I think they would be more cognizant of trying to conserve it. And
mm-hmm.
so, I mean, farmers are great stewards, but if they're not sure, if they're pumping
Mm-hmm.
every day and they don't know the gallons they're putting on their field,
Right.
then I'd love to, people want to blame them, but the truth is they need certain tools, and the tools that were available at the time were just flow meters. You put a flow meter on your well, and there wasn't good telematics, so it's not like you could bring that to your phone and look at it. Today, that's
Right.
changed a little, but the problem there is a problem with the flow meter, and the flow meter problem is this: it is you can buy a flow meter, you can put it on, and you can begin to understand your water use. But that flow meter is not static, meaning it's going to deteriorate over time. You got sand in your well, you've got
Right.
mechanical issues,
Right.
and so we learned very quickly through talking to universities and others that there's a real maintenance cost to flow meters. There's the initial
Mm-hmm.
cost, and then there's the long term cost. So we actually went to Twin Plant and said, look, we were working with a guy named Rourke Paulman. I think you've met Rourke. Rourke's up in Nebraska. He's out of Sutherland. And I was sitting in his office one day, and it's in the winter, and he said, I think we could do it a different way. And I said, well, give me some examples of ways that we've measured water before. And he said, well, at one point we tried to use the electric smart meter. He said there are all these electric wells, and about 80% of the wells in the Twin Platte Natural Resource District are electric wells. And he said, I think we could use the electricity. So we began a really deep dive into an algorithm on how we could use electricity to understand can we turn that into a water meter.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of that is I've worked in IoT projects in the field before, meaning out trying to connect all the fields, get the data back in, bring it in through cellular or LoRaWAN or all those methods, but it's always difficult. But in this case, the idea was let the electric company manage their their electric meter. They're wanting to know how much electricity you're using, and can we somehow piggyback them take
Yeah.
care of all the maintenance on the meter? How good can we make this? And what we could build would be a very scalable project that
Mm-hmm.
means that we're not deploying any equipment in the field. We're using
Mm-hmm.
someone else's equipment. They're keeping it up, and then we get the data off of it. We went to the electric companies, and they were super collaborative. So they worked very closely with us for us to do some initial testing. And out of that, we came to the conclusion that electric smart meter data is broken into 96 segments in a 24-hour period. So every 15 minutes it reports the kilowatt usage during that time frame.
Right.
And because water, even if you're only pumping from 20 feet, I mean, there's some shallow wells close to the actual river stream system that next to the Platte, and then there's some deeper wells as you get away from the Platte River. But I mean, it takes a significant amount of energy to lift water to the top of the ground,
Yes.
and because of that, we could actually tell when a well was pumping water when it was walking dry. These are things we had to understand so that we'd know it can be small amounts of electricity used for ancillary things. But if there was a dedicated meter to the well, we came pretty quickly to the conclusion that we could capture the electricity and we could create a stopwatch, a time frame.
Mhm.
How long is an irrigation event? Did it last? Sometimes they'll last 48 hours or longer. And
Mhm.
so the other piece of the equation we needed to know what the flow rate of the well was. What is this well pump? And so Twin Platte, actually the natural resource district, they agreed that they would begin to actually collect pump rates. And what I mean, they take an ultrasonic flow meter. Now they do own all the flow meters. They have employees that go to the field and actually gather that in season. What's it pumping? And it's a pretty static area, meaning we live in an area of Texas where when you start pumping, you might be pumping 300, and when you end pumping, you might be pumping 180. I mean,
Yes.
it's just, but in Nebraska, there's only one area in that district that really is impacted like that. Most of the district is it's pretty even through the year. I mean,
And
I,
that's really that's like the deepest part of the Ogallala. I mean,
I mean,
that's
they
where the
have most
water
of.
of the Ogallala is.
Yeah. Well, the town of Ogallala, Nebraska is in my project. So that should tell
There you
you
go.
something about the
Yes.
saturated sand and
Right.
saturated thickness that's there.
Yeah.
So they do have a ton of saturated thickness and the water level doesn't change a lot. Although we have all sorts of audits. We have level devices at a bunch of wells so we can see if the water's dropping. We have flow meters on some wells,
Mhm.
90 wells, in fact, that actually tell us if we're close. We're auditing all the time to see if that our algorithm using our method is close to
Mhm.
what that is. And we found over
Mhm.
time that we have to keep these meters highly calibrated, or they can't tell us. So flow meters is not the best answer either. They have their variance develops over time. Ours is static, pretty much. I mean, electricity can change and the usage can change, but the time of pumping, we're spot on. I
Mhm.
can tell you how many hours a well run
Right.
within literally in a
Right.
whole season within minutes, because all we do is prorate the bookends, and then we know every one in the
Mhm.
middle is 15 minutes. So we built that out, and we started that in 2019. 2020 was our first deployment, and today we're in 2025, and it's just a continual process of improvement. The beauty is there's like 2,411 fields fields. There's 2,700 plus wells. There's around 480 registered users that operate in that area, and they're all involved. I mean, 100% of the farmers in that area are signed into the program. And
Wow.
that's pretty crazy. I've done a lot of ag tech things, but to have that big a
Mhm.
buy-in, because
Mhm.
I believe the Twin Platte was just their management, their employees, incredible, holding meetings, trying to explain to farmers why they needed to do this so that they could keep irrigating without restrictions. Uh, we're kind of a model for the state of Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska Department of Natural Resources is always looking closely at what we're gathering in our project. And if you just put a flow meter on something, I mean, it really only tells you how many gallons you pump during a season, unless you have good telematics and can bring out the information to a database. Whereas we can tell you exactly what day they irrigated on, and what
Mhm.
happened after, what happened before. You can learn a lot about irrigation. Because of that, we're kind of a place that many venture companies seek to actually do work with us. So we've had several well-funded groups that have come in and
Mhm.
actually put their devices
Mhm.
on pivots and wells to see if
Mhm.
they can
Right.
actually utilize the fact that we know how much was irrigated. So it's been an incredible project, and we did prove right away within the first couple of years farmers will irrigate some less just by knowing they can look on their phone every day. So we built a
Mhm.
phone app, and so they can look and see what they irrigated the day before. We get the electric data during the night, so we get all the electric data for the
Okay.
prior day. So we're
Yeah.
near real time. We're not actual real time, but we're near enough that they can
Right.
see
They
how
can
much
make
water they're
decisions.
applying.
Mhm.
And just
Wow.
knowledge of that is huge. We're actually working now with several other companies. We haven't chosen any, but we're looking at scheduling assistance. Should a farmer irrigate or not? Looking at all sorts of satellite and
Mhm.
infield radar things that can be put on the pivot. There's all sorts of devices. We're
Mhm.
trying to find one that will really tell farmers, should I be irrigating? Because, farmer irrigates, his dad did it. He does it. It's a gut instinct. But there's a lot of data today. And,
Mhm.
even things like, now NASA has something they call OpenET. We're taking a
Yes.
strong look at that to work with OpenET. And is it good enough? And it's NASA, so I want to first of all say it probably is, but is it good enough for us to help the farmer understand his
Right.
evapotranspiration at a field level? We're
Right.
working with a company called Arable. That actually
Mhm.
has a really neat device, and they actually capture hyperlocal rainfall. I think we got 200 plus devices out across the district in those where we can
Wow.
actually see where
Yeah.
where it rained. I'd love to find a way to actually understand rainfall at every field.
Mhm.
There's a lot of ways to do that, radar, etc., but they're not always that accurate. If you've ever looked at online tools,
Yes.
hey, it's rained
Yeah.
a half inch over here, and you get over there and it's rained an inch or it rained two
Right.
tenths.
Right. Right. Yeah.
In their defense, it's very difficult. So I'll
Mhm.
stop there because I could talk for hours about what we've done there. But I want to say this just kind of to wrap it up. It's been an incredible project that really Twin Platte had a vision for. We gave them a way to do it, maybe in a less expensive way, but yet make it scalable across the district. But they also work with like Olson Engineering out of Lincoln, Nebraska. So they're always studying
Yes.
the aquifer.
Great group. Great group.
That's a great
Hmm.
group, and Dr. Jim Snyder there. And then
Yeah.
on wells that aren't electric, they contracted with a group called Ethos Connected, and Ethos actually puts devices in the field for that 15 to 20% of the wells that aren't electric.
Yeah.
We get that data. It's a challenge for them, but it's a challenge when you manage devices. So that's something that I try to avoid because it's not my
Hmm.
forte. But it's got to be done in places. I mean, Tillery, I'll say this. This has been said to be in many places I've been the largest fixed IoT project in the world. The number of acres it's covered, devices
Right.
that are I don't doubt it. I mean, if we had to, if I sort of cheated to get there, and I cheated by actually piggybacking. The electric companies have been. I mean, there's several
Right.
of them in that area.
Hmm.
They
Sure.
want us to pass us data, so it's been incredible. Just to name some of those: Midwest Electric Cooperative, Dawson Public Power, Nebraska Public Power, and there's some
Hmm.
others that are smaller, but Custer Public Power. They've been incredible, and then a couple of real small ones that just they're not small, but they're small in what they actually serve in our region.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, the reason we have such adoption is the employees at Twin Platte, and then the collaborative effort of so many others to try to get an answer around irrigating. So it's been an incredible project.
That was my question is, I have seen in Kansas, some districts that have, where the farmers have said, I mean, we got to police ourselves before we get policed,
Yeah,
and I think technically that's what our, water districts in Texas were intended to do. Of course, you probably know that we had a lawsuit of, I think it was a potato grower that sued the district north of Amarillo
I did not know that.
for fines, yeah, and for being fined for over pumping the agreed amount. And anyway, he won, and
Yeah.
so
And for those that aren't from Texas, it's the right of capture in
right,
Texas.
exactly.
The reason he won is that is the law in Texas.
That's the law. There's no teeth, right?
Yeah, whether you agree or not, it is a
Mm-hmm.
private property right, and if you can stick a straw there and they allow you to put a well there, then you could pump it day and night.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
I have, I've seen the water dwindle in Texas. A lot of that has to do with we just don't have any good recharge. That's one of the things, and then it's very hard to bring people together to collaborate
Mm-hmm.
around restrictions. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always because I used to be an ag banker. I always worried back then. I was worried about the water even in the 90s. And but I also knew that farmers had paid top dollar for those irrigated acres. So it was a struggle. How
It
do you get
is.
them?
It
They
is.
paid for
Right.
the water and now they want to pump it and their neighbors pumping. And so they're trying to pump as much. So it's difficult. And in Nebraska, the farmers don't own the water. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a different
It
set
takes
of
that
laws.
that toll equation is off the table.
Yeah. So that's why they are regulated. I mean, the state,
Mhm.
they have a right. Most places only have one well. That's all they have. And then, of course, it's good water.
Mhm.
But yeah, I have no solution for that. I've spent the last 40 years
Mhm.
trying to understand the issue. I used to have irrigation. It's not that I lost irrigation. I irrigated in the 80s. And then, just based on a desire to have more dry land, I literally, in the early 90s, I changed it all to dry land. I swapped acres and did some things, but I also went into a banking career for a decade where I was
Mhm.
doing both and couldn't manage the water. So there's probably, I always have
Yeah.
people say, how did you know to get rid of those irrigated farms? I said, oh, I had no idea. It was sheer happenstance. There was no
Yeah.
brilliance at all.
Right. Hey, friends, I'm excited to tell you about NASA. NASA Acres, which is part of the Earth Science Division of NASA, is coming to our area. They're coming here because they want to learn about how we farm and they want to see if there's ways that they can help us. So, NASA Acres is a project that we've been partnering with for several months now, and they will be here for ag tours October the 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we will be in Terry County. We will be heading then up to Crest and over to Morton. We're going to be in a lot of different places. We're going to put that agenda up on our website on the homepage so you can see where we are. And if you want to come by and just see what what do they have to do with agriculture? We would love for you to meet these folks. They want to meet you. They want to talk about maybe how you can participate and have remote sensing information available for your farm. This is a farmer-led effort. So if you're an ag business, or if you're a farmer, come out and just kick the tires on what it might be like to partner with NASA on an ag project. So what is it? I mean, as a dryland farmer in our area, um, how are you managing? Are you really reliant on crop insurance, or are you
Well,
are you able to harvest some
you know,
years and
I'd be kind of an oddball out. And the reason is, of course, I've done this. This is my 43rd crop.
yeah.
Uh, it's very seldom that I don't harvest a crop. So the
Mhm.
last few years I've harvested, I think last year we harvested almost all the acres. But you got to understand something. I've had an opinion for a number of years now that if we're going to grow cotton, we got to get through August, and I can't be sure that I'm going to get rain in late July and August. And so I plant skip row, which I didn't do early in my career. I skip row every acre, and
Mhm.
then I'm very low
Mhm.
plant population. So if we have a really good
Mhm.
year, I'm not going to make 2 bales of cotton like I did at one time. I could make 2 bales of dry land in a really good year,
Mhm.
but I'm going to be down there in something less because I don't have the plant population for it. But cotton is a very forgiving plant. It'll actually compensate for itself. So I sort of set it up to just compensate for itself. Now my yields last year were not good. I had a couple of fields that caught another inch of rain that actually made decent. But for the most part, I harvested it. I mean, so I went ahead and harvested everything. That's just how I think. I grew it all year. I'm going to take it. I'm going to try to take it to harvest. But I'm going to tell you, with the cost of, I don't have the newest type of harvesting machine for cotton. Some of these
Mhm.
machines, when you put them in the field and every hour you put on them is
Mhm.
costing a lot of money. It's a big
Right.
decision, and it's their financial decision. So it's like I told the guy one day. He said, "What are you going to do?" Well, I said, "Well, I'm going to do me, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. But you make any decision you want." So the thing is, I am relying on crop insurance to this extent. If there's a shortfall on my yield, I got to have it. But
Right.
the problem is really in the dry land, it's just not, there's nothing advantageous to just going the crop insurance route. There's nothing there. I mean, you got to picture a few years of low
Mhm.
yields. It's just a backup plan, and that's all.
Right.
And we've been waiting for a year like this year, even though it hasn't been perfect because I've had some hail. In fact, I'll have a hail adjuster out on Monday on several acres of cotton that we got a week ago. But for the most part, the cotton looks pretty good. We had a decent start. It's a little thin because I planted it thin to start with, not knowing it was going
Mhm.
to rain so much. And now I'm using plant growth regulators to actually try to actually shape that cotton up so it won't be
Mhm.
so rank to harvest. And so anyway, that's
Yeah.
sort of where it's at. but I have no, I really don't have a solution to the financials in agriculture right now because it's across the board. It's even in the Midwest. We've really been hit the last few years of drought with not enough water to really compensate for the lack of rainfall. And you can look really smart with one decision, or you can look like an idiot. So,
Right.
and I
Right.
can't
It's so
outguess the
true.
weather,
Yeah.
but we have
Yeah.
struggled
Mm-hmm.
in 22, 23, and 24 to get
Mm-hmm.
rainfall in that finishing part of the season, and it hurt our crop immensely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
but when you're skip row and you're thin, you're probably going to be able to harvest it. I mean, and this year there's going to be some really good solid plant
Mm-hmm.
dryland cotton. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. So this would have been a year for me to go back and plant it like that, and it would have been a home run, but
Yeah.
I
Well, you
didn't.
never know. If you just had a crystal ball, right?
Well, and I just kind of stick to my plan. My
Yeah.
plan is I pretty much plant cotton to keep cotton, and it's going to have to be pretty stinky for me not to keep it, even after a hail or a because but and the reason is in the long run I've just found I'm better off. I may manage it a little different, not fertilize it, not put any more inputs in it,
Mm-hmm.
just try to keep it clean from weeds. But there's
Yeah.
some of that. Well, I wish our real trouble, Tillery, is uh, just input cost. They're just so much. The
It is.
margins are really slim. It's just a difficult time to make it all work. So hopefully some of those things will. I've hoped it for years, but this is the last couple of years have probably been the most challenging economically.
Mm-hmm.
This one looks like it could be okay. Of course, we don't have much demand for cotton right now, and that's hurting our pricing. And
It
so we'll
is.
have to see how that ends
Right.
up.
Right. Yeah. We've got so much competition now with, other regions, particularly Brazil, that,
Oh yeah.
I was in Europe a I guess about a year, some months ago, and at the EU and then in Poland and then we had some kids that were here, farmers that were here, and
Yeah.
we were just comparing like the subsidies, but not just the subsidies, the price that they are getting.
Mhm.
They have way more yield, like
Mhm.
in some cases 17 times the yield that we have in wheat.
Whoa, that's crazy.
And yes, and then their prices are good. And
Yeah.
then, and one of them made the comment like they were surprised at how much lack of innovation they were seeing here. And I will say, like when we were there, there's a lot of innovation and there's a lot of money going into innovation there. But, farmers, they're getting subsidized for the things that they're buying,
Yeah.
that equipment, and
Yeah.
so it's hard to compete against, a government that puts that much value on their food supply chain.
Right. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with some of those places, so I wouldn't understand their subsidies, but yeah, it's I don't know. We've got to value our food supply here. We really have to because it's one of the cheapest in the world, and it's continual. And for the most part, we don't have many places around us that we'd consider starving because there's always food. In fact, there's food waste going on all the time.
Right. Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting because now you don't have people that are starving from lack of calories. You have people that are starving from lack of nutrition,
Yeah, and I can agree.
and so
Eat
that's
a
really
lot of
more
processed
where we
stuff.
are. Yeah.
Eat a
In
lot
fact,
of processed food.
we have a project going right now across rural West Texas where they're doing some health initiatives and finding, just astronomical levels of people that, in small community where there's, half the people are either diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Wow. What's
Yeah.
driving that? Is it a lot of processed foods, those kind of things? Is that what's right?
Yeah. And a lot of times there's lack of access to other food that's not processed food, and also, I mean, you can say what you want about processed food, but so many of us, that's all you have the time for. Like it has to be a cultural shift, you know, of people are going to have more hours to be home in order to cook this kind of food that is better for them and learn how to do those things because
You know,
there's no
maybe
one home to do that anymore.
maybe someday we do a show where, so during COVID, I used to travel. Before COVID, there was a time running GSC working on data solution projects. I was traveling 200 days a year. And so COVID happened, and then boom, I wasn't traveling and
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to speak at conferences and those kind of things. So I
Mm-hmm.
was here.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so I got involved in, I couldn't cook. I could scramble an egg. That was the extent. But I started cooking. And today I refuse to eat. I cook everything. I mean, me and Crystal cook everything we eat. But the crazy part is, all my kids are grown. And so if we cook, this is our solution. So I think everybody has fun. If we
I'd
cook,
love to hear what the solution is to
yeah,
this
no,
because I know
no.
what you're going to
Our
say.
solution is, I got 3 big freezers in the garage. We cook like we're cooking for my 4 kids and us, and
Right.
then we eat this little bit of it, and then we've got a really good vacuum sealer, and we'll vacuum. We'll take everything we didn't eat, we'll vacuum it up into serving size and date it and put the name on it. Throw it in the
Idea.
freezer, and I'm going to tell you, you can read all the things. Don't keep it up. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if it'll ever go bad if it's vacuum sealed. And I do that all the time. Like we'll cook some. I mean, this is over like on the weekend. We might cook a lot of stuff. I mean, right now I could feed you out of my freezers for
Mhm.
probably we. You could come live with us. We'd
Mhm.
probably eat 4 or 5 months
Mhm.
without needing any food.
Yeah. Well, and I was. It is funny because I had my car worked on this last week, and where it was in the shop, it was like I don't know, it's a half a mile from me, and I'm like, they're like, "Do you want to ride?" I was like, "No, I'm just a few blocks away," and they're like,
Yeah, they thought it was weird.
"This is
We drive.
bizarre," and I'm walking home thinking, my goodness, I get something that I miss. Like I enjoyed about COVID was I walked all everywhere all the time. I saw my neighbors outside. The kids were playing in our front yard, or
Yeah.
everywhere all the time. I started grinding wheat, baking bread again. You know what I mean? Like just
No.
doing things that
Well,
like
we didn't have so much busy time going on, and
yes,
I think that I was still working, but all of a sudden I didn't have a front and a back date of travel. Everybody started, hey, we'll do a Zoom call. The other thing that's kind of unique, I think, is, and I didn't even know what any of these would work, but there was this invention called the Instant Pot. You've probably seen them,
yes,
and so the
yes.
Instant Pot to me, people cook in them, but I don't cook in it. Here's what I do. I take that vacuum bag that's in a very good, high quality vacuum bag, put about a half inch of water in there, throw that food in there, close it, put it on high pressure for 20, 22 minutes. And so I don't even have to wash that thing because when it's done, I just dump it out of that. And
Out of
you
the
use certain
bag.
bags that are, even though
Mm-hmm.
they're plastic, they're food grade made for
Right,
heating and stuff.
right.
But, it's kind of a cool deal because even to heat, because,
Great
the
idea.
problem with trying to reheat and the reason we don't like to freeze things, you dry them out when you try to reheat them,
Yeah.
you mess them up. But I
Mm-hmm.
tell you what, you ought to take some brisket or steaks and what's left, just put it
Yeah.
like, and then guess
Right.
what? When you go to actually heat that up, that
Yeah.
stuff is as moist in fact,
Yeah.
some foods become better as they
Yeah.
absorb all the flavors and sit in there.
Right. Right.
Anyway,
Exactly.
I have a whole thought on how we get to eat better.
I like that idea. I mean, I did so much that when my kids were younger, and I've realized like how much
You had
I
to.
don't prioritize my own, you
No.
know,
I
and
get
and
it.
it,
I
it
totally. And
it's
who
not
wants to
good.
cook every day? Who wants to cook? So if there's some
No,
way to get a selection going where you're
exactly.
not able to cook, the other thing, and
Right.
you mentioned a potato farmer. I'm a firm believer that we have vilified the potato. I
Oh,
don't
and we
think,
vilify a lot of foods. Yes.
and the sad part is you can buy a 10-pound bag of potatoes for $4 plus,
Yes.
some change.
Yes.
In most people that are on a tight budget, they won't buy them because they believe that it's all these
Hmm.
bad carbs. Sometime you ought to have somebody from the potato industry on, a
Oh, that's a
neat
great
guy.
idea. I heard just the other day that like a lot of those simple carbs, when they're frozen and reheated,
You got it. That's where
they
I'm going.
become actually a slow carb. I had no idea.
That's
That's
right.
actually a
So
great idea. I have a friend that actually is part of that the potato association.
listen,
So it'd be fabulous to have her on.
listen, I've done better dieting when I'm eating potatoes, but all the potatoes I eat, so I'll get a 10-pound bag of potatoes. I will cook the whole 10 pounds at once. I'll throw them in vacuum bags and I'll freeze them, and then I'll reheat them to eat them. And then what happens is you take those simple sugars, and actually because they've been frozen, when they're frozen, they become resistant starch is what the word for it is. So they're not something
Wow.
your body really wants to absorb. But what happens is they feed the bacteria, the good bacteria in your like your colon. So they're
Yeah.
really so in the potato industry as a study on this. I mean,
That's
it's
so fascinating. Yeah, and potatoes, we grow in case people don't know, we do grow potatoes not far from where you live.
that's a lot of potatoes from
A
not far
lot of
away.
potatoes are grown in there because we have that perfect
When we
sandy
had
soil.
water, when we had really good water, they were really. I mean, there
Yeah.
was Smith
We
potato
still
shed.
have a potato shed though.
Okay, I didn't even.
We
There's still
do.
some potatoes growing up there. Okay,
Yep, yep. There's a potato shed there. I was there last year, touring that, and
well,
yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
still there.
You know,
hmm
another one
Yeah.
is, have you ever been through the Select Milk, dry milk plant there in
I
Littlefield?
never have that.
You should
I
do
would
that.
love
That's
to
an
do that.
incredible facility. They would love to have you come in and interview them. I promise you, they're a super group.
Awesome.
I've been there and seen that place, and you know that's really an innovative group, Select Milk. So you know they
Yeah.
developed the idea behind oh what's the milk that Fairlife. So Fairlife,
Yes.
and you know they
Yes.
sold it to Coca Cola, but it all
Yes.
started with Select Milk.
Hey, friends. Here on the High Plains, we have got a chance to work with NASA's Develop project. The focus is cover crops, using satellite tools to identify things like when they were planted and how they're managed, and how can we build real research to see what value they bring or maybe they don't bring. So if you're a farmer, you're planting cover crops, we'd love your help. A short form will be sent to you with some basic information like your planting date, termination date, maybe the years that you had cover crops. Your information is going to stay protected, but it'll make a really big difference in showing what cover crops are really worth having in our region. If you want more information, want to be part of this, you can visit sarah-conservation.com. We'll have some information there. And you can also reach out to me at contact sarah-conservation.com, and I would be happy to put your name on the list. Thank you very much.
There's some great minds. I feel like I wonder what will come out of these few years because what I saw, when I was in Europe, when I was in California, like places that are highly regulated, it drives innovation.
Trying to
And sometimes when there's no pressure to change, nothing changes.
right,
And then it's too late. Things should have changed 2 decades ago, but there was no pressure for them to change. And so sometimes I'm not a fan of, I'm not saying I'm a fan of regulation, but there needs to be a balance of,
sure,
no, you can't have an expectation all the time that people are always going to do the right thing. They don't always do the right thing. And so sometimes, that's part of what I think, you see that in the preamble of our Constitution to support, to promote the common good.
right,
You
right.
know, the general welfare is what it says. Promote the
Yeah,
general welfare.
I think we need to reindustrialize America. I wish that, I wish we had, when we lost the cotton mill out of Littlefield, that to
Yes.
me was but we couldn't compete on labor costs with China.
Mm-mm.
But
Yep.
with automation, and people say, well, does that really put people to work? Well, somebody's got to build the equipment that goes in there. There is oversight. I would love to see some things because it's wasteful to move stuff 7,800
Mhm.
miles just to
Yeah.
say it gets to a place that has cheaper labor.
Right.
That's why one of the biggest things I do today, I've launched a chemical company there in Lubbock to actually, about that
Yes.
Grower Freedom Alliance. So we actually I partnered with a group called Vulpus that is kind of unique. The drivers behind the company. It's a Chinese family that immigrated from China about a decade ago, and they made chemicals in China. And so they understood how to do lean manufacturing. And I was introduced by American Farm Bureau to them in 2022. And then we formed a partnership, and actually we've launched several items that are really good for the environment. And what I mean by that is, we deal with a lot of things that we maybe could use less chemicals if they were more efficacious and more the quality was higher. So we're trying to promote quality. We created a water product that you can put with your spray solution before you spray. And what it does a lot. It's similar to what ammonia sulfate does without using ammonia sulfate, but it's just a proprietary group of fermented acids, and it actually makes the water not get the minerals in the water not chelate or get bound to your herbicides. So I was using some lower rates of herbicide early in the season because I didn't feel like I needed to put out the top rate because I was getting really good results because of my pH of my water was better. And then the other things they've worked on that we have got out this year are very high purity, shooting for 99% so that we can use less of them. And so there's a drive there. People said, we've got a chemical plan. Why do you want people to use less chemicals? Well, we just like them to use what they need to use. I mean, I haven't figured out how to farm without them. So what I got to do in the meantime is be the most judicious user of the chemistry that we have.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of innovation going on there from their group, trying to actually rectify some of those things.
That's really exciting. So tell me what's the name of the company?
The name of the group is Grower Freedom Alliance. So if someone wanted to look at it, they can go to gfatexas.com, and that kind of explains the whole process. We're a buying group. Farmers came in, actually become part of the buying group. Then we actually leased a massive building out at Reese Air Force Base, about 100,000 square feet. And Vulpus, the chemical company, Vulpus Agriculture. They've renovated the building, and we've got mixing tanks, chemistry tanks, all that stuff. They've got a state of the art lab. They're an incredible people. So it's sometime when if I'm in Lubbock and we have time, I'll holler at you and you can come out there and take a look at what's going on. They really are. They've done an excellent job. In fact, they have one chemical right now that they've filed patents on that we could actually lower the use of we could clean up the chemical with a process they have, and it's a well-known chemistry. So maybe some of that'll come out of because they're world-class chemists. I mean, the father of this group's been doing this for 40 years. So that's his whole life. He's worked in pharmaceutical and in agriculture. So
that is really exciting. And it's exciting to me that those kind of things are still happening here where we are. It's happening locally. It's exciting. Right. Well, it's been great to visit with you. Before we conclude, I have a surprise question for you.
Okay.
Who is one person, living or deceased, that you think people should know about?
Somebody that is living or deceased that I think people should know about. Well, Tillery, that's a loaded.
Somebody that's impactful in your life.
Man, there have been so many that have been.
I know, right?
I would say first, I'd be like the athlete that would say, living today, one time deceased, Jesus Christ. Of course, I'm a Christ follower, so you can say that. But then, who in living flesh has impacted my life? There's been so many people that have poured into me through the years. When I was in banking, a brother-in-law of mine, Eddie Hedges, that we actually ran the banks together, and he was so impactful. He had 30 years of banking experience, or maybe more at that time, and he really did have such an impact on me. Man, it's just I'm sitting here thinking I've actually had I've got to sit on boards with just really astute people. A lot of them, I love this. There were farmers, and people would not realize. Tillery, there was a gentleman. I will tell this quick story because it was so amazing to me. There was a gentleman. His name was Rex Griffith, and he was from where was he from? He was from over close to maybe Bledsoe back in there, Lehman, not Lehman, maybe Bledsoe. But I remember he served on the telephone cooperative board with me. This guy was visionary. We went to the first time, and he's an older guy. He's deceased now. but we went and looked at, talking about cellular phones. And so we decided we were going to get into that. And everybody had the bag phone. And I remember I got on the
Oh
plane with
yeah.
this guy,
Oh
and
yeah.
Rex looked at me and said, Billy, I promise you, in your lifetime, you'll be carrying that phone in your pocket. You just have a little phone in your pocket. Yeah, he was telling me this, and this is years ago. I mean, when the
Wow.
cellular phones were just coming out, we got involved in it. And then that blew my mind. But the one that really blew my mind, before the internet was the internet, we were trying to decide if we wanted to try to be an internet service provider. And we went to a conference and actually watched for the first time I ever saw the internet. So we come back, we were in the boardroom, and everybody was older, and I'm like 26. I'm a kid. And they're like, well, what do you guys think? I said, I got to have it. I said, I got to have this internet. I did. I said, I would use it every day. I said, I mean, and they said to me, well, how many people do you think will, we had, I've forgotten how many subscribers we had, but how many of our subscribers in this 5 area region do you think would be on it? And I was trying to be conservative. And you know what he said? He said, someday they'll all be on it. That's what he said. I'm just like, and everybody laughed
Yeah.
at him. So I sometimes
Yes.
think about
Yes.
him, this guy. So, there's so many we
That's,
could name. You probably
yes.
too, but
Yep. But that's what this is something that I've been wanting to start for a while, and I thought I'm going to start with you because
oh man,
there are so many there so many people that have gone before us
yeah.
that are so impactful, and it's to be able to honor. You
Yeah.
mentioned Eddie. I mean Eddie's parents,
Oh my
Arthur and
gosh.
Moselle. I
Did
mean
you know this?
Amherst. Oh yes,
Oh my gosh. Are they
yes,
not Arthur Hedges? The beauty was I got to actually sit on a gin board where he was the manager for a number of years. A guy with
yes,
tremendous integrity. And you're right.
yes,
A lot of people, if they're fortunate, I feel very fortunate. You'd mentioned your father, because my father didn't have a college education or any of those things. Still, when people say, name the five smartest people you ever dealt with. And I always list him because it didn't matter. I can't explain it. He had a knack for
mhm,
solving an issue. Like, didn't matter whether it was
mhm,
complicated or not.
right,
He
yeah,
would begin to dwell on it. And so I'm
mhm,
like, be careful that you rank, because I'm college educated, but I mean, I'll never discount a guy that's made it through
yeah,
life and worked hard.
yeah,
So, you ought to
yeah,
do something about that and give the guy a little heads up. He could think through the top five people, and
yeah,
name a
yes,
hundred, right? I think of college professors that really believe
hmm,
in, you know, you know,
right, right,
if I often think about this, and I've said this to a lot of people through the years, but if I've been successful, and my success, I would hope in the end would be that my grandkids would go, well, we knew how he believed and what he believed, and that would be most important to me. But I think about failures. Like I've had some close calls on businesses because I've been in so many things over the last 43
yeah,
years. But I just want to be honest. God, I was fortunate that God put me with a partner in my wife of all those years. She
mhm,
always believed in me. Even
mhm.
when I was facing failure. No, you'll figure it out. I'm not worried about it, which drove me crazy to an extent. At the end,
Yes.
she would say, no, I'm riding with you, and you're
Oh wow,
driving, and you will figure it
yeah,
out. So,
wow,
it's sometimes, isn't it funny how when you tell people, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If
yeah,
you're positive with somebody, how all of a sudden they're like, well, I only have one choice. We got to survive out of this. And so
yeah,
I think
exactly.
there's a lot. I wish our world was more positive with people. We
I
always
do
we
too.
always find the most negative thing
Hmm.
about somebody.
Hmm.
We ought to be a people of second chances. There's a lot of people that
Oh,
have.
I totally agree. I mean, Doug and I, we recorded a podcast about our bankruptcy,
Yes,
and talked very openly about what it was like to go through farm
oh,
bankruptcy,
something
and
like
then
that would
and
be.
and where we are now,
Yeah,
because so many people are in that transition, and wanting people to be aware that there's hope. And that's why I wanted to start this, is because I want people to have an opportunity to highlight people that they might not be famous,
that's right.
but it's important for us to honor the legacy that they left, and not just for them but their families, to hear that they are not forgotten.
It's true. Yeah, it's
Yep.
always cool to. It's not always, maybe the rest of the world doesn't know these people, but there's always somebody,
Mhm.
everybody needs a sponsor in life. And,
Yeah,
my dad sponsored me to start farming, wouldn't have been able
yeah.
to do it without him. And I think everybody needs a
Mhm.
sponsor at some level.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
that's a good thing that you're thinking like that. Cause
Yeah.
we need positive outtakes. Cause man, when we become a nation with no hope, that is just too sad.
I know it's
We
true.
need to
It
be a
is
place of
true,
hope.
and there's a lot of good out there, and it just doesn't get a lot of
God, amen.
attention. So I
Yeah.
think the more we can focus on it, the better. Well, thank you so much,
All right.
and
See
I
you
hope
later.
everybody's enjoyed this. I knew we would go all kinds of places, and I love it. It's my favorite thing. So I hope people have learned a lot. And friends, thanks for joining us, and I hope that you will. Like Billy and I just did, think through some of those people that have been impactful in your life, and remember the example that they set. And I look forward to another episode with you on Conservation Stories.